Section 3 of A Dream of John Ball by William Morris. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 10. Those Two Talk of the Days to Come. Brother, said John Ball, how deemest thou of our adventure? I do not ask thee if thou thinkest we are right to play the play like men, but whether playing like men we shall fail like men. Why dost thou ask me? Said I. How much further than beyond this church can I see? Far further, quoth he, for I wot that thou art a scholar and hast read books, and withal, in some way that I cannot name, thou knowest more than we, as though with thee the world had lived longer than with us. Hide not, therefore, what thou hast in thine heart, for I think after this night I shall see thee no more until we meet in the heavenly fellowship. Friend, I said, ask me what thou wilt, or rather, ask thou the years to come to tell thee some little of their tale, and yet methinks thou thyself mayest have some deeming thereof. He raised himself on the elbow of the stall, and looked me full in the face, and said to me, Is it so after all that thou art no man in the flesh, but art sent to me by the Master of the Fellowship, and the King's Son of Heaven, to tell me what shall be? If that be so, tell me straight out, since I had some deeming hereof before, whereas thy speech is like ours, and yet unlike, and thy face hath something in it which is not after the fashion of our day. And yet take heed, if thou art such an one, I fear thee not, nay, nor him that sent thee, nor for thy bidding nor for his will I turn back from London Bridge, but will press on, for I do what is meet and right. Nay, said I, did I not tell thee e'en now that I knew life but not death? I am not dead, and as to who hath sent me, I say not that I am come by my own will, for I know not, yet also I know not the will that hath sent me hither. And this I say to thee, moreover, that if I know more than thou, I do far less. Therefore thou art my captain, and I thy minstrel. He sighed as one from whom a weight had been lifted, and said, Well then, since thou art alive on the earth and a man like myself, tell me how deemest thou of our adventure? Shall we come to London? And how shall we fare there? Said I, What shall hinder you to come to London, and to fare there as ye will? For be sure that the fellowship in Essex shall not fail you, nor shall the Londoners who hate the king's uncles withstand you, nor hath the court any great force to meet you in the field. Ye shall cast fear and trembling into their hearts. Even so, I thought, said he. But afterwards what shall betide? Said I, It grieves my heart to say that which I think. Yet hearken, many a man's son shall die who is now alive and happy, and if the soldiers be slain, and of them most not on the field but by the lawyers, how shall the captains escape? Surely thou goest to thy death. He smiled very sweetly, yet proudly, as he said, Yea, the road is long, but the end cometh at last. Friend, many a day have I been dying, for my sister, with whom I have played and been merry in the autumn tide about the edges of the stubble fields, and we gathered the nuts and brambleberries there, and started thence the missel thrush, and wondered at his voice, and thought him big, and the sparrow-hawk wheeled and turned over the hedges, and the weasel ran across the path, and the sound of the sheep bells came to us from the downs, as we sat happy on the grass. And she is dead and gone from the earth, for she pined from famine after the years of the great sickness. And my brother was slain in the French wars, and none thanked him for dying, save he that stripped him of his gear. And my unwedded wife, with whom I dwelt in love after I had taken the tonsure, and all men said she was good and fair, and true she was, and lovely. She also is dead and gone from the earth. And why should I abide, save for the deeds of the flesh, which must be done? Truly, friend, this is but an old tale that men must die. And I will tell thee another, to wit, that they live. And I live now, and shall live. Tell me then what shall befall. Somehow I could not heed him as a living man as much as I had done, and the voice that came from me seemed less of me as I answered, These men are strong and valiant as any that have been or shall be, and good fellows also, and kindly, but they are simple, and see no great way before their own noses. The victory shall they have, and shall not know what to do with it. They shall fight and overcome because of their lack of knowledge, and because of their lack of knowledge shall they be cozened and betrayed when their captains are slain, and all shall come to naught by seeming, and the king's uncles shall prevail, that both they and the king may come to the shame that is appointed for them. And yet when the lords have vanquished, and all England lieth under them again, yet shall their victory be fruitless, for the free men that hold unfree lands shall they not bring under the collar again, and villanage shall slip from their hands till there be, and not long after ye are dead, but few unfree men in England, so that your lives and your deaths both shall bear fruit. Said I not, quoth John Ball, that thou wert ascending from other times? Good is thy message, for the land shall be free. Tell on now. He spoke eagerly, and I went on somewhat sadly. The times shall be better, though the king and lords shall worsen. The guilds of craft shall wax and become mightier. More recourse shall there be of foreign merchants. There shall be plenty in the land, and not famine. Where a man now earneth 2 pennies, he shall earn 3. Yea, said he, then shall those that labour become strong and stronger, and so soon shall it come about that all men shall work, and none make to work, and so shall none be robbed, and at last shall all men labour, and live, and be happy, and have the goods of the earth without money and without price. Yea, said I, that shall indeed come to pass, but not yet for a while, and belike a long while. And I sat for long without speaking, and the church grew darker as the moon waned yet more. Then I said, Bethink thee that these men shall yet have masters over them, who have at hand many a law and custom for the behoof of masters, and being masters can make yet more laws in the same behoof, and they shall suffer poor people to thrive just so long as their thriving shall profit the mastership, and no longer. And so shall it be in those days I tell of, for there shall be king and lords and knights and squires still, with servants to do their bidding, and make honest men afraid. And all these will make nothing, and eat much as aforetime, and the more that is made in the land, the more shall they crave. Yea, said he, that wot I well, that these are of the kin of the daughters of the horse leech. But how shall they slake their greed, seeing that as thou sayest villanage shall be gone? Belike their men shall pay them quit rents, and do them service, as free men may, but all this according to law, and not beyond it. So that though the workers shall be richer than they now be, the lords shall be no richer, and so all shall be on the road to being free and equal. Said I, Look you, friend, aforetime the lords for the most part held the land and all that was on it, and the men that were on it worked for them as their horses worked, and after they were fed and housed all was the lords. But in the time to come the lords shall see their men thriving on the land, and shall say once more, These men have more than they need. Why have we not the surplus, since we are their lords? Moreover, in those days shall betide much chaffering for wares between man, and country, and the lords shall note that if there were less corn and less men on their lands, there would be more sheep, that is to say, more wool for chaffer, and that thereof they should have abundantly more than aforetime, since all the land they own, and it pays them quit rent or service, save here and there a croft or a close of a yeoman. And all this might grow wool for them to sell to the Easterlings. Then shall England see a new thing, for whereas hitherto men have lived on the land and by it, the land shall no longer need them, but many sheep and a few shepherds shall make wool grow to be sold for money to the Easterlings, and that money shall the lords pouch. For look you, they shall set the lawyers a work, and the strong hand moreover, and the land they shall take to themselves and their sheep, and except for these lords of land, few shall be the free men that shall hold a rood of land, whom the word of their lord may not turn adrift straightway. How mean you? Said John Ball. Shall all men be villains again? Nay, said I, there shall be no villains in England. Surely then, said he, it shall be worse, and all men save a few shall be thralls, to be bought and sold at the cross. Good friend, said I, it shall not be so. All men shall be free, even as ye would have it. Yet, as I say, few indeed shall have so much land as they can stand upon, save by buying such a grace of their masters. And now, said he, I wot not what thou sayest. I know a thrall, and he is his master's every hour, and never his own. And a villain I know, and whiles he is his own, and whiles his lord's. And I know a free man, and he is his own always. But how shall he be his own, if he have not whereby to make his livelihood? Or shall he be a thief, and take from others? Then is he an outlaw. Wonderful is this thou tellest of a free man with naught whereby to live. Yet so it shall be, said I, and by such free men shall all wares be made. Nay, that cannot be. Thou art talking riddles, said he. For how shall a woodwright make a chest without the wood and the tools? Said I, he must needs buy leave to labour of them that own all things except himself, and such as himself. Yea, but wherewith shall he buy it? Said John Ball. What hath he except himself? With himself then shall he buy it, quoth I. With his body, and the power of labour that lieth therein. With the price of his labour shall he buy leave to labour. Riddles again, said he. How can he sell his labour for aught else but his daily bread? He must win by his labour meat and drink and clothing and housing. Can he sell his labour twice over? Not so, said I. But this shall he do belike, he shall sell himself, that is, the labour that is in him, to the master that suffers him to work, and that master shall give to him from out of the wares he maketh, enough to keep him alive, and to beget children and nourish them till they be old enough to be sold like himself, and the residue shall the rich man keep to himself. John Ball laughed aloud and said, Well, I perceive we are not yet out of the land of riddles. The man may well do what thou sayest and live, but he may not do it and live a free man. Thou sayest sooth, said I. End of chapter 10. Chapter 11. Hard it is for the old world to see the new. He held his peace a while, and then he said, But no man selleth himself and his children into thraldom uncompelled, nor is any fool so great a fool as willingly to take the name of freeman and the life of a thrall as payment for the very life of a freeman. Now would I ask thee somewhat else, and I am the readier to do so since I perceive that thou art a wondrous seer, for surely no man could of his own wit have imagined a tale of such follies as thou hast told me. Now well I wot that men having once shaken themselves clear of the burden of villanage, as thou sayest we shall do, and I bless thee for the word, shall never bow down to this worser tyranny without sore strife in the world, and surely so sore shall it be, before our valiant sons give way, that maids and little lads shall take the sword and the spear, and in many a field men's blood and not water shall turn the grist-mills of England. But when all this is over, and the tyranny is established, because there are but few men in the land after the great war, how shall it be with you then? Will there not be many soldiers and sergeants and few workers? Surely in every parish ye shall have the constables to see that the men work, and they shall be saying every day, Such an one hast thou yet sold thyself for this day or this week or this year? Go to now, and get thy bargain done, or it shall be the worse for thee. And wheresoever work is going on there shall be constables again, and those that labour shall labour under the whip like the Hebrews in the land of Egypt, and every man that may will steal as a dog snatches at a bone, and there again shall ye need more soldiers and more constables, till the land is eaten up by them, nor shall the lords and the masters even be able to bear the burden of it, nor will their gains be so great, since that which each man may do in a day is not right great when all is said. Friend, said I, from thine own valiancy and high heart thou speakest, when thou sayest that they who fall under this tyranny shall fight to the death against it. Wars indeed there shall be in the world, great and grievous, and yet few on this score. Rather shall men fight as they have been fighting in France at the bidding of some lord of the manor, or some king, or at last at the bidding of some usurer and forestaller of the market. Valiant men, forsooth, shall arise in the beginning of these evil times, but though they shall die as ye shall, yet shall not their deaths be fruitful as yours shall be, because ye, forsooth, are fighting against villanage, which is waning, but they shall fight against usury, which is waxing. And moreover, I have been telling thee how it shall be when the measure of the time is full, and we, looking at these things from afar, can see them as they are indeed, but they who live at the beginning of those times and amidst them shall not know what is doing around them. They shall indeed feel the plague, and yet not know the remedy. By little and by little they shall fall from their better livelihood, and weak and helpless shall they grow, and have no might to withstand the evil of this tyranny. And then again, when the times mend somewhat, and they have but a little more ease, then shall it be to them like the kingdom of heaven, and they shall have no will to withstand any tyranny, but shall think themselves happy that they be pinched somewhat less. Also, whereas thou sayest that there shall be for ever constables and sergeants going to and fro to drive men to work, and that they will not work save under the lash, thou art wrong, and it shall not be so. For there shall ever be more workers than the masters may set to work, so that men shall strive eagerly for leave to work. And when one says, I will sell my hours at such and such a price, then another will say, and I for so much less, so that never shall the lords lack slaves willing to work, but often the slaves shall lack lords to buy them. Thou tellest marvels indeed, said he. But how then, if all the churls work not? Shall there not be famine and lack of wares? Famine enough, said I, yet not from lack of wares. It shall be clean contrary. What wilt thou say when I tell thee that in the latter days there shall be such traffic and such speedy travel across the seas, that most wares shall be good cheap, and bread of all things the cheapest? Quoth he, I should say that then there would be better livelihood for men, for in times of plenty it is well, for then men eat that which their own hands have harvested, and need not to spend of their substance in buying of others. Truly it is well for honest men, but not so well for forestallers and regraters. But who heeds what befalls such foul swine, who filch the money from the people's purses, and do not one hair's turn of work to help them? Footnote: forestaller, one who buys up goods when they are cheap, and so raises the price for his own benefit. Forestalls the due and real demand. Regrater, one who both buys and sells in the same market, or within 5 miles thereof. Buys, say, a ton of cheese at 10 a.m., and sells it at 5 p.m. a penny a pound dearer, without moving from his chair. The word monopolist will cover both species of thief. End of footnote. Yea, friend, I said, but in those latter days all power shall be in the hands of these foul swine, and they shall be the rulers of all. Therefore hearken, for I tell thee that times of plenty shall in those days be the times of famine, and all shall pray for the prices of wares to rise, so that the forestallers and regraters may thrive, and that some of their well-doing may overflow unto those on whom they live. I am weary of thy riddles, he said, yet at least I hope that there may be fewer and fewer folk in the land, as may well be, if life is then so foul and wretched. Alas, poor man, I said, nor mayest thou imagine how foul and wretched it may be for many of the folk, and yet I tell thee that men shall increase and multiply, till where there is 1 man in the land now, there shall be 20 in those days. Yea, in some places 10 times 20. I have but little heart to ask thee more questions, said he, and when thou answerest, thy words are plain, but the things they tell of I may scarce understand. But tell me this, in those days will men deem that so it must be for ever, as great men even now tell us of our ills, or will they think of some remedy? I looked about me. There was but a glimmer of light in the church now, but what there was no longer the strange light of the moon, but the first coming of the kindly day. Yea, said John Ball, 'tis the twilight of the dawn. God and Saint Christopher send us a good day. John Ball, said I have told thee that thy death will bring about that which thy life has striven for. Thinkest thou that the thing which thou strivest for is worth the labour, or dost thou believe in the tale I have told thee of the days to come? He said, I tell thee once again that I trust thee for a seer, because no man could make up such a tale as thou. The things which thou tellest are too wonderful for a minstrel, the tale too grievous, and whereas thou askest as to whether I count my labour lost, I say nay, if so be that in those latter times, and worser than ours they will be, men shall yet seek a remedy. Therefore again I ask thee, is it so that they shall? Yea, said I, and their remedy shall be the same as thine, although the days be different. For if the folk be enthralled, what remedy, save that they be set free? And if they have tried many roads towards freedom, and found that they led no whither, then shall they try yet another. Yet in the days to come they shall be slothful to try it, because their masters shall be so much mightier than thine, and they shall not need to show the high hand. And until the days get to their evilest, men shall be cozened into thinking that it is of their own free will that they must needs buy leave to labour by pawning their labour that is to be. Moreover, your lords and masters seem very mighty to you, each one of them, and so they are, but they are few, and the masters of the days to come shall not each one of them seem very mighty to the men of those days, but they shall be very many, and they shall be of one intent in these matters without knowing it, like as one sees the oars of a galley when the rowers are hidden, that rise and fall, as it were, with one will. And yet, he said, shall it not be the same with those that these men devour? Shall not they also have one will? Friend, I said, they shall have the will to live, as the wretchedest thing living has. Therefore shall they sell themselves that they may live, as I told thee, and their hard need shall be their lord's easy livelihood, and because of it he shall sleep without fear, since their need compelleth them not to loiter by the way, to lament with friend or brother that they are pinched in their servitude, or to devise means for ending it. And yet indeed thou sayest it, they also shall have one will if they but knew it, but for a long while they shall have but a glimmer of knowledge of it. Yet doubt it not that in the end they shall come to know it clearly, and then shall they bring about the remedy. And in those days shall it be seen that thou hast not wrought for nothing, because thou hast seen beforehand what the remedy should be, even as those of later days have seen it. We both sat silent a little while. The twilight was gaining on the night, though slowly. I looked at the poppy which I still held in my hand, and bethought me of Will Green, and said, Lo, how the light is spreading! Now must I get me back to Will Green's house as I promised. Go then, said he, if thou wilt. Yet meseems before long he shall come to us, and then mayest thou sleep among the trees on the green grass, till the sun is high, for the host shall not be on foot very early, and sweet it is to sleep in shadow by the sun in the full morning when one has been awake and troubled through the night-tide. Yet I will go now, said I. I bid thee good night, or rather good morrow. Therewith I half rose up, but as I did so, the will to depart left me as though I had never had it, and I sat down again, and heard the voice of John Ball, at first as one speaking from far away, but little by little growing nearer and more familiar to me, and as if once more it were coming from the man himself, whom I had got to know. End of chapter 11. Chapter 12. Ill would change be at whiles, were it not for the change beyond the change. He said, Many strange things hast thou told me that I could not understand. Yea, some my wit so failed to compass, that I cannot so much as ask thee questions concerning them, but of some matters would I ask thee, and I must hasten, for in very sooth the night is worn old and grey. Whereas thou sayest that in the days to come, when there shall be no labouring men who are not thralls after their new fashion, that their lords shall be many and very many, it seemeth to me that these same lords, if they be many, shall hardly be rich, or but very few of them, since they must verily feed and clothe and house their thralls, so that that which they take from them, since it will have to be dealt out amongst many, will not be enough to make many rich, since out of one man ye may get but one man's work, and pinch him never so sorely, still as aforesaid, ye may not pinch him so sorely as not to feed him. Therefore, though the eyes of my mind may see a few lords and many slaves, yet can they not see many lords as well as many slaves. And if the slaves be many and the lords few, then some day shall the slaves make an end of that mastery by the force of their bodies. How then shall thy mastership of the latter days endure? John Ball, said I, mastership hath many shifts whereby it striveth to keep itself alive in the world. And now hear a marvel, whereas thou sayest these 2 times that out of one man ye may get but one man's work. In days to come, one man shall do the work of 100 men, yea, of 1,000 or more. And this is the shift of mastership that shall make many masters and many rich men. John Ball laughed. Great is my harvest of riddles tonight, said he. For even if a man sleep not, and eat and drink while he is a-working, ye shall but make 2 men, or 3 at the most, out of him. Said I, Sawest thou ever a weaver at his loom? Yea, said he, many a time. He was silent a little, and then said, Yet I marvelled not at it, but now I marvel, because I know what thou wouldst say. Time was when the shuttle was thrust in and out of all the 1,000 threads of the warp, and it was long to do. But now the spring staves go up and down as the man's feet move, and this and that leaf of the warp cometh forward, and the shuttle goeth in one shot through all the 1,000 warps. Yea, so it is that this multiplieth a man many times. But look you, he is so multiplied already, and so hath he been, meseemeth, for many 100 years. Yea, said I, but what hitherto needed the masters to multiply him more? For many 100 years the workman was a thrall, bought and sold at the cross, and for other hundreds of years he hath been a villain, that is, a working beast, and a part of the stock of the manor on which he liveth. But then thou and the like of thee shall free him, and then is mastership put to its shifts. For what should avail the mastery then, when the master no longer owneth the man by law as his chattel, nor any longer by law owneth him as a stock of his land, if the master hath not that which he on whom he liveth may not lack and live withal, and cannot have without selling himself? He said nothing, but I saw his brow knitted, and his lips pressed together as though in anger. And again I said, Thou hast seen the weaver at his loom. Think how it should be if he sit no longer before the web, and cast the shuttle, and draw home the sleigh, but if the shed open of itself, and the shuttle of itself speed through it as swift as the eye can follow, and the sleigh come home of itself, and the weaver standing by and whistling the hunts up the while, or looking to 6 looms and bidding them what to do. And as with the weaver, so with the potter and the smith and every worker in metals and all other crafts, that it shall be for them looking on and tending, as with the man that sitteth in the cart while the horse draws. Yea, at last so shall it be even with those who are mere husbandmen, and no longer shall the reaper fare afield in the morning with his hook over his shoulder, and smite and bind and smite again till the sun is down and the moon is up. But he shall draw a thing made by men into the field with 1 or 2 horses, and shall say the word, and the horses shall go up and down, and the thing shall reap and gather and bind, and do the work of many men. Imagine all this in thy mind if thou canst, at least as ye may imagine a tale of enchantment told by a minstrel, And then tell me, what shouldst thou deem that the life of men would be amidst all this, men such as these men of the township here, or the men of the Canterbury guilds? Yea, said he, but before I tell thee my thoughts of thy tale of wonder, I would ask thee this. In those days when men work so easily, surely they shall make more wares than they can use in one countryside, or one good town, whereas in another, where things have not gone as well, they shall have less than they need, and even so it is with us now, and thereof cometh scarcity and famine. And if people may not come at each other's goods, it availeth the whole land little that one countryside hath more than enough, while another hath less. For the good shall abide there in the storehouses of the rich place till they perish. So if that be so in the days of wonder ye tell of, and I see not how it can be otherwise, then shall men be but little holpen by making all their wares so easily and with so little labour. I smiled again and said, Yea, but it shall not be so. Not only shall men be multiplied 100 and 1,000-fold, but the distance of one place from another shall be as nothing, so that the wares which lie ready for market in Durham in the evening may be in London on the morrow morning, and the men of Wales may eat corn of Essex, and the men of Essex wear wool of Wales, so that, so far as the flitting of goods to market goes, all the land shall be as one parish. Nay, what say I? Not as to this land only shall it be so, but even the Indies, and far countries of which thou knowest not, shall be, so to say, at every man's door, and wares which now ye account precious and dear bought, shall then be common things, bought and sold for little price at every huckster's stall. Say then, John, shall not those days be merry and plentiful of ease and contentment for all men? Brother, said he, meseemeth some doleful mockery lieth under these joyful tidings of thine, since thou hast already partly told me to my sad bewilderment what the life of man shall be in those days. Yet will I now for a little set all that aside, to consider thy strange tale as of a minstrel from over sea, even as thou biddest me. Therefore I say that if men still abide men as I have known them, and unless these folk of England change as the land changeth, and forsooth of the men, for good and for evil, I can think no other than I think now, or behold them other than I have known them and loved them. I say, if the men be still men, what will happen except that there should be all plenty in the land, and not one poor man therein, unless of his own free will he choose to lack and be poor, as a man in religion or such like, for there would then be such abundance of all good things, that as greedy as the lords might be, there would be enough to satisfy their greed, and yet leave good living for all who laboured with their hands, so that these should labour far less than now, and they would have time to learn knowledge, so that there should be no learned or unlearned, for all should be learned, and they would have time also to learn how to order the matters of the parish and the hundred, and of the parliament of the realm, so that the king should take no more than his own, and to order the rule of the realm, so that all men, rich and unrich, should have part therein. And so by undoing of evil laws and making of good ones, that fashion would come to an end whereof thou speakest, that rich men make laws for their own behoof, for they should no longer be able to do thus when all had part in making the laws, whereby it would soon come about that there would be no men rich and tyrannous, but all should have enough and to spare of the increase of the earth and the work of their own hands. Yea, surely, brother, if ever it cometh about that men shall be able to make things, and not men work for their superfluities, and that the length of travel from one place to another be made of no account, and all the world be a market for all the world, then all shall live in health and wealth, and envy and grudging shall perish. For then shall we have conquered the earth, and it shall be enough, and then shall the kingdom of heaven be come down to the earth in very deed. Why lookest thou so sad and sorry? What sayest thou? I said, Hast thou forgotten already what I told thee, that in those latter days a man who hath naught save his own body, and such men shall be far the most of men, must needs pawn his labour for leave to labour? Can such a man be wealthy? Hast thou not called him a thrall? Yea, he said. But how could I deem that such things could be, when those days should be come wherein men could make things work for them? Poor man, said I, learn that in those very days when it shall be with the making of things as with the carter in the cart, that there he sitteth, and shaketh the reins, and the horse draweth, and the cart goeth. In those days, I tell thee, many men shall be as poor and wretched always, year by year, as they are with thee when there is famine in the land, nor shall any have plenty and surety of livelihood, save those that shall sit by and look on while others labour, and these, I tell thee, shall be a many, so that they shall see to the making of all laws, and in their hand shall be all power, And the labourers shall think that they cannot do without these men that live by robbing them, and shall praise them, and well nigh pray to them, as ye pray to the saints. And the best worshipped man in the land shall be he who by forestalling and regrading hath gotten to him the most money. Yea, said he, and shall they who see themselves robbed worship the robber? Then indeed shall men be changed from what they are now, and they shall be sluggards, dolts, and cowards beyond all the earth hath yet borne. Such are not the men I have known in my life days, and that now I love in my death. Nay, I said, but the robbery shall they not see, for have I not told thee that they shall hold themselves to be free men? And for why? I will tell thee. But first tell me how it fares with men now. May the labouring man become a lord? He said, the thing hath been seen, that churls have risen from the dortoir of the monastery to the abbot's chair and the bishop's throne, yet not often, and whiles hath a bold sergeant become a wise captain, and they have made him squire and knight, and yet but very seldom. And now I suppose thou wilt tell me that the church will open her arms wider to this poor people, and that many through her shall rise into lordship. But what availeth that? Naught were it to me if the abbot of St. Albans with his golden mitre, sitting guarded by his knights and sergeants, or the prior of Merton with his hawks and his hounds, had once been poor men, if they were now tyrants of poor men. Nor would it better the matter if there were 10 times as many houses of religion in the land as now are, and each with a churl's son for abbot or prior over it. I smiled and said, comfort thyself, for in those days shall there be neither abbey nor priory in the land, nor monks nor friars, nor any religious. He started as I spoke. But thou hast told me that hardly in these days may a poor man rise to be a lord. Now I tell thee that in the days to come, poor men shall be able to become lords and masters and do nothings, and oft will it be seen that they shall do so, and it shall be even for that cause that their eyes shall be blinded to the robbing of themselves by others, because they shall hope in their souls that they may each live to rob others. And this shall be the very safeguard of all rule and law in those days. Now am I sorrier than thou hast yet made me, said he, for when once this is established, how then can it be changed? Strong shall be the tyranny of the latter days, and now meseems, if thou sayest sooth, this time of the conquest of the earth shall not bring heaven down to the earth, as erst I deemed it would, but rather that it shall bring hell up onto the earth. Woe's me, brother, for thy sad and weary foretelling. And yet, saidst thou that the men of those days would seek a remedy? Canst thou yet tell me, brother, what that remedy shall be, lest the sun rise upon me made hopeless by the tale of what is to be? And, lo you, soon shall she rise upon the earth. In truth the dawn was widening now, and the colours coming into the pictures on wall and in window, and as well as I could see through the varied glazing of these last, and one window before me had as yet nothing but white glass in it. The ruddy glow, which had but so little a while quite died out in the west, was now beginning to gather in the east. The new day was beginning. I looked at the poppy that I still carried in my hand, and it seemed to me to have withered and dwindled. I felt anxious to speak to my companion and tell him much, and withal I felt that I must hasten, or for some reason or other I should be too late. So I spoke at last, loud and hurriedly. John Ball, be of good cheer. For once more thou knowest, as I know, that the fellowship of men shall endure, however many tribulations it may have to wear through. Look you, a while ago was the light bright about us, but it was because of the moon, and the night was deep notwithstanding. And when the moonlight waned and died, and there was but a little glimmer in place of the bright light, yet was the world glad, because all things knew that the glimmer was of day and not of night. Lo you, an image of the times to betide, the hope of the fellowship of men. Yet forsooth, it may well be that this bright day of summer, which is now dawning upon us, is no image of the beginning of the day that shall be, but rather shall that day dawn be cold and grey and surly, and yet by its light shall men see things as they verily are, and no longer enchanted by the gleam of the moon and the glamour of the dreamtide. By such grey light shall wise men and valiant souls see the remedy, and deal with it, a real thing that may be touched and handled, and no glory of the heavens to be worshipped from afar off. And what shall it be, as I told thee before, save that men shall be determined to be free, yea, free as thou wouldst have them, when thine hope rises the highest, and thou art thinking not of the king's uncles, and pole-groat bailiffs, and the villanage of Essex, but of the end of all, when men shall have the fruits of the earth, and the fruits of their toil thereon, without money and without price. The time shall come, John Ball, when that dream of thine, that this shall one day be, shall be a thing that men shall talk of soberly, and as a thing soon to come about, as even with thee they talk of the villains becoming tenants, paying their lord quit-rent. Therefore hast thou done well to hope it, and, if thou heedest this also, as I suppose thou heedest it little, thy name shall abide by thy hope in those days to come, and thou shalt not be forgotten." I heard his voice come out of the twilight, scarcely seeing him, though now the light was growing fast, as he said, "Brother, thou givest me heart again. Yet since now I wot well that thou art ascending from far-off times and far-off things, tell thou, if thou mayest, to a man who is going to his death, how this shall come about." "Only this may I tell thee," said I. "To thee, when thou didst try to conceive of them, the ways of the days to come seemed follies scarce to be thought of. Yet shall they come to be familiar things, and an order by which every man liveth, ill as he liveth, so that men shall deem of them, that thus it hath been since the beginning of the world, and that thus it shall be while the world endureth. And in this wise, so shall they be thought of a long while, and the complaint of the poor the rich man shall heed, even as much and no more as he who lieth in pleasure under the lime trees in the summer heedeth the murmur of his toiling bees. Yet in time shall this also grow old, and doubt shall creep in, because men shall scarce be able to live by that order, and the complaint of the poor shall be hearkened, no longer as a tale not utterly grievous, but as a threat of ruin and a fear. Then shall those things which to thee seem follies, and to the men between thee and me mere wisdom and the bond of stability, seem follies once again. Yet whereas men have so long lived by them, they shall cling to them, yet from blindness and from fear. And those that see, and that have thus much conquered fear that they are furthering the real time that cometh, and not the dream that faileth, these men shall the blind and the fearful mock and missay, and torment and murder, and great and grievous shall be the strife in those days, and many the failures of the wise. And too oft sore shall be the despair of the valiant, and backsliding and doubt, and contest between friends and fellows, lacking time in the hubbub to understand each other, shall grieve many hearts, and hinder the host of the fellowship. Yet shall all bring about the end, till thy deeming of folly and ours shall be one, and thy hope and our hope, and then the day will have come. Once more I heard the voice of John Ball. "Now, brother, I say farewell, for now verily hath the day of the earth come, and thou and I are lonely of each other again. Thou hast been a dream to me as I to thee, and sorry and glad have we made each other, as tales of old time and the longing of times to come shall ever make men to be. I go to life and to death, and leave thee, and scarce do I know whether to wish thee some dream of the days beyond thine, to tell what shall be, as thou hast told me, for I know not if that shall help or hinder thee. But since we have been kind and very friends, I will not leave thee without a wish of goodwill. So at least I wish thee what thou thyself wishest for thyself, and that is hopeful strife and blameless peace, which is to say in one word, life. Farewell, friend." For some little time, although I had known that the daylight was growing, and what was around me, I had scarce seen the things I had before noted so keenly. But now in a flash I saw all, the east crimson with sunrise through the white window on my right hand, the richly carved stalls and gilded screen-work, the pictures on the walls, the loveliness of the faultless colour of the mosaic window lights, the altar and the red light over it, looking strange in the daylight, and the biers with the hidden dead men upon them that lay before the high altar. A great pain filled my heart at the sight of all that beauty, and withal I heard quick steps coming up the paved church path to the porch, and the loud whistle of a sweet old tune therewith. Then the footsteps stopped at the door. I heard the latch rattle, and knew that Will Green's hand was on the ring of it. Then I strove to rise up, but fell back again. A white light, empty of all sights, broke upon me for a moment, and lo, I behold, I was lying in my familiar bed, the southwesterly gale rattling the Venetian blinds and making their holdfasts squeak. I got up presently, and going to the window, looked out on the winter morning. The river was before me, broad between outer bank and bank, but it was nearly dead ebb, and there was a wide space of mud on each side of the hurrying stream, driven on the faster, as it seemed, by the push of the southwest wind. On the other side of the water, the few willow trees left us by the Thames Conservancy looked doubtfully alive against the bleak sky and the row of wretched-looking blue-slated houses, although, by the way, the latter were the backs of a sort of street of villas and not a slum. The road in front of the house was sooty and muddy at once, and in the air was that sense of dirty discomfort which one is never quit of in London. The morning was harsh too, and though the wind was from the southwest, it was as cold as a north wind, and yet amidst it all I thought of the corner of the next bight of the river, which I could not quite see from where I was, but over which one can see clear of houses and into Richmond Park, looking like the open country, and dirty as the river was, and harsh as was the January wind, they seemed to woo me toward the countryside, where away from the miseries of the great Wen I might of my own will carry on a daydream of the friends I had made in the dream of the night, and against my will. But as I turned away, shivering and downhearted, on a sudden came the frightful noise of the hooters, one after the other, that call the workmen to the factories, this one, the after-breakfast one, more by token. So I grinned surlily, and dressed and got ready for my day's work as I call it, but which many a man besides John Ruskin, though not many in his position, would call play. End of chapter 12. End of A Dream of John Ball by William Morris.